Okay guys, hello everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is the second video of my series that I've just started, Crack NEETPG 2022 in 3 months. This is Dr. Ayush Sharma, and today the topic that we're going to discuss is something that has been popping up on my Instagram DMs like I cannot say from how long. Every day at least one person comes up to me and asks this question, ki, how can I approach grant tests? And by that they don't mean should I give them or not. What they usually mean is how many to give, how often to give, right? And how do I, the main thing that people ask me is how do I discuss them or how do I analyze them, right? How do I uh, basically review my grant tests, right? What should be my approach to review the grant tests? So all this and a lot more questions that have popped up in my DMs and everything. I've made a list of those questions and I'm going to be answering all of them, right? Before we get started with the video, the first thing that I would like to highlight is the importance of grant tests, right? So, and when should you start giving them? So, as Dr. Abbas Ali, you must be knowing him, he says ki, when should you start giving grant tests? You should start giving them yesterday, and I could not agree more. The reason being, the function of a grant test is not to tell you. Of course, it tells you about what your preparation level is, how you're performing among your peers, but that is not the main objective of grant test. The main objective of grant test is to first of all tell you the important topics. And if you watched my previous video, I've told you the importance of knowing the important topics, right? कि इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक्स पता लगेंगे तब तुम अपना एक रिवीजन सोर्स बना पाओगे. रिवीजन सोर्स बनेगा तब तुम उसको रिवाइज कर पाओगे. रिवीजन सोर्स रिवाइज कर पाओगे तब जीटी के स्कोर इंप्रूव होंगे और जीटी के स्कोर इंप्रूव होंगे तो नीट पीजी में रैंक आएगी. इट्स ऑल लिंक्ड, इट्स ऑल साइक्लिकल. द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज टू नो द इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक्स, right, which is being repeated again and again and again. So that is where grant tests come into play. Grant tests and previous year question papers. Okay. So even if you're somebody who's just started preparing for NEET PG 2022, you're like, चलो ठीक है, internship में पढ़ाई नहीं हुई, let me just give a fair good attempt and let's see where it goes. Baki, mostly I'll clear it next year. There are a lot of people like that as well. So if you're someone among them, then again I would like to advise you to give grant tests. There's no exception to this rule. Okay, even if you just started. Okay. Now let me discuss with you the questions that have popped up in my feed, and the things that people keep on asking me on repeat, right? So the first topic that we're going to discuss is the frequency of giving grant tests, right? So as you can see here in my presentation that I have for you, the first topic is of course the frequency of giving grant tests. So here people usually miss out on one very important thing, which is that there are components in terms of when it comes to your NEET PG preparation. What are those three components? I'll write them down for you. So number one is your revision, okay, which I think I've highlighted enough in my last video. If you want, I'll just pop up a link around this time, up or down, I don't know where it is going to come. So I'll just pop up a link to the previous video to make sure you revisit the importance of revision, because it is the most important thing out there to improve your NEET PG scores, right? So first thing is the revision component, revision of your revision source, of course, right? The second thing is your grant tests, and the third thing is your questions. Now for questions, what I recommend, this is something that is off topic, but I'll just address this thing. What I recommend you do for questions is, instead of going to the Q bank, right, instead of going to the Q bank, I would advise you to do TND. Okay, so Q bank say better is TND. The reason being, in TND, the topics that come, right? Supposing you see any TND for that matter, I've done with DAMS and it's a very excellent source. I mean, it has a lot of chunks that I've incorporated from the TND into my 3 golden notebooks, right? So the TND is an excellent source because the topics that are going to come in TND, the topics that the teachers put, right? For example, what is TND? TND is a 75 question paper, which is going to incorporate the entire subject. And the teachers preparing that test, now they are genius people in their field, right? So they know what comes in the exam, and according to that they frame 75 questions, right? So even if you just revise that particular TND paper, it becomes very high yielding, right? So instead of going for Q banks, I would suggest you go for TNDs, right? Because if you go to a Q bank, what will happen is, there are some topics which are not very frequently asked, but just in order to frame a Q bank for a particular subject, they add those topics also, right? And I think that is a waste of time around this point at least. So always remember, TND better than Q bank for practicing questions, right? All right, okay. And if you want to do questions from question bank, then I would advise go for clinical vignette type of questions. I think there is a clinical vignette question paper in DAMS. I think there are 200 questions, and 5 such papers, clinical vignette papers. So you can do that because that ultimately improves your thinking capacity, MCQ solving skills, and that is again very, very important, right? So there are three components in short: revision, grand test, and question. Now you cannot say कि grand test are more important or revision is more important. It is going to depend on your phase of preparation. ठीक है? So just like I spoke about this in the previous video, this is how I'm going to start all my videos, because I cannot give a generalized advice to everybody कि चलो भाई everybody do this, you are going to score well. No, that is not the case. You have to understand what phase are you preparing, what phase of preparation are you in, and what is the best advice that is suitable for you. That's how we're going to approach things. ठीक है? Right. So how can you know कि in which phase of preparation you are? So in order to know how many grant tests that you need to give per week or per month rather is a better word to use, you will have to give a grant test. Now this is something that is my way of understanding things. So what I want you to do is, first I want you to give a GT. So if you want to know how many GT you need to give in the next coming 3 months or coming 1 month, let us keep it short term, 1 month. How many grant tests do you need to give in 1 month? What you will do is, you will go home, you will give a grant test, any platform, Marrow, Prep Ladder, Damp, whatever. Okay, choose a grant test that is normal. I mean, earlier on, I'm saying this because there was a phase, I think in Marrow only, I think during May or April, they were making horrible, really difficult grant tests. I'm not saying that I was finding them tough. Everybody was finding them tough. Around the time when the new pattern was announced, I think that those Marrow people, they went crazy and they were making such high level questions. Maybe their thought process was कि 300 के 200 क्वेश्चन हो गए हैं और थोड़े high level questions आएंगे, but that is not all the case. You've seen the exam, right? So don't pick such a grand test. You will know कि पहले पुराने grand test मत pick करो, something that is a recent one in any platform you can choose. So give that grand test, and based on the number of corrects that you're getting. So this that I've mentioned here, 110, 120, these are all the number of correct answers. Okay. So if you fall in under the category of less than 110 correct answers, okay, that clearly means that what you're lacking is a revision source or the number of revisions of that revision source. So for you, what is important is to work on revision. Okay, so work on content, work on revision. This is the most important thing for you, right? So first category, people who are getting less than 110 correct, work on your content more than your grand tests. Second category of people, between 110 to 120. You people are falling slightly on the moderate zone, so you need to revise your content also. You need to work on your content also, and you need to give grand tests as well, right? And the last one is more than 120. This is the category even I'll fit in at this point, right? So you guys have a stable content level. So why I'm saying a stable content level is कि even if you ask me to give a grand test now, या कल सुबह, whenever you want, I'm 100% sure that I'll not score less than 120, because that is my baseline zone. मुझे इतना नॉलेज है कि मैं 120 क्वेश्चन तो निकाल लूंगा, किसी भी तरह का पेपर आ जाए, राइट? द रीजन बीइंग, आई हैव रिवाइज्ड माय रिवीजन सोर्स एंड आई एम very much sure about it, and I'm very confident about my revision source कि उसका जो content है, right, it is very high yielding, and I'm not likely to get less than 120 in any scenario. No matter how many silly mistakes I make or whatever I do, less than 120 is not a possibility for me. The reason being, my revision source was so strong, and the number of revisions of the revision source that I've given are very, very high. I've read those 3 copies at least 15-20 times. That is the time of that is the time that I got because of so many postponements. So this particular stability, right, at a particular score, people say they get stuck at a particular score, right? And that is a very genuine query. We're going to discuss that as well, right? So my zone of getting stuck is between 125 to 135, right? That was always my zone of getting stuck, right? And I was not able to go up, and I was not coming down also from that point. So you have to understand, if you're getting more than 120 correct, that means your content is not less, you're doing some of the other mistakes which we'll discuss subsequently, right? So for the people who are scoring less than 110, I would advise you guys to work more on your content, more on your revision source and everything, more than giving grant tests. So in the next 1 month, you can give maybe 1 or 2 maximum. Okay, so 1 or 2 grant tests. Okay, right? And the second group of people that are falling under 110 to 120 correct, you guys are slightly in the moderate zone, so I would advise you to work on your content as well as give grant tests. So 2 grant tests for the next month for you. ठीक है, महीने में 2 grant tests. And more than 120 correct, what I want you to do is at least 3 grant tests in the next month. ठीक है, अब कैसे देना है, विल कम टू इट, डोंट वरी, विल कम टू इट। ठीक है। नाउ दिस इज समथिंग, या दिस इज अगेन समथिंग दैट इज वेरी लाफेबल आई फील समटाइम्स, कि तुम्हारा टारगेट ऑफ नंबर ऑफ करेक्ट्स क्या होना चाहिए। ठीक है। तो वाई डू आई थिंक दिस इज लाफेबल इज बिकॉज अब तुम अगर किसी बंदे को बोल रहे हो कि जिसके ग्रैंड टेस्ट में लेट्स से 90 100 110 के आसपास नंबर आते हैं, तुम उसको कह रहे हो तुम 140 सही करके आओ, दैट शुड बी योर टारगेट। तो वो कैसे करेगा यार, इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल, राइट। सो द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड इज दैट योर टारगेट हैज टू बी टू इम्प्रूव। ठीक है, नंबर वन टारगेट हैज टू बी टू इम्प्रूव। ठीक है, कितना भी तुम्हारा स्कोर आ रहा है, यू हैव टू इम्प्रूव फ्रॉम देयर। ठीक है, नीचे नहीं आना चाहिए स्कोर। यू अंडरस्टैंड, इफ यू गेटिंग 110 करेक्ट, राइट, इट शुड गो अबव दैट और स्टे एटलीस्ट नियर दैट, 108 109 110 115 112, around that particular range, right? So that is what is very very important to improve. And secondly, if you do want a target, okay, if you do want a target, my advice to you would be to target more than 140 correct. Okay. For the people who are in a slightly better zone, in a better place, more than 120 correct, the people that are getting more than 120 correct, target should be at least 140 corrects, right? I'll tell you how to get there, don't worry, right? So now that we've talked about the number of grant tests that you need to give, let us move one step forward and discuss the problems of giving grant tests and reviewing them. Now, the first and foremost problem that I have not seen any YouTuber or anybody address, okay, any teacher for that matter address, is the boredom, the amount of sheer boredom that you get from रिव्यूइंग अ ग्रांड टेस्ट। देने में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती है, ठीक है, एवरीबडी गिव्स अ ग्रांड टेस्ट, नो इश्यूज। फिर नंबर आते हैं, एवरीबडी सीज कि हाँ भाई अच्छा ठीक है, अच्छे नंबर आए कम नंबर आए, उसके बाद छोड़ देते हैं। आई मीन दे गो फॉर अ डिस्कशन, राइट, दे सी फॉर 1 hour 2 hours एंड देन दे लाइक यार मज़ा नहीं आ रहा है, मन नहीं कर रहा है, एंड देन दे जस्ट skip through questions and a lot of things are skipped out. And the most important thing is not giving the grand test, it is analyzing the grand test, and that is a part that everybody misses out. Not because it is very difficult or anything, people get bored here, and it's a very genuine thing. I don't know why people don't address it. Okay, and this boredom is not limited to grand test, I'll tell you. My issue always has been in preparation कि मेरे से बैठा नहीं जाता है, I cannot sit by myself to read, right? So I have faced this problem ever since my internship started, ever since I started reading. So what I did, I'll tell you. This is going to sound weird, but I don't think this is something that you can do at this point. So I'm just going to tell you what I did. So at the beginning point of my internship, which was I think in 2020, I knew for a fact कि मेरे से बैठा नहीं जाएगा. I'll not be able to sit for 8 to 10 hours by myself. तो आई थॉट कि व्हाट कैन आई डू टू इंक्रीज माई सिटिंग। तो बिकॉज आई न्यू कि आई कैनॉट सिट अलोन, बट वेन यू आस्क मी टू सिट विद समवन और वेन यू आस्क मी टू टीच समवन, आई कैन गो ऑन फॉर आवर्स एंड आवर्स, 6 घंटे 8 घंटा 10 घंटा, आई कैन टीच फॉर अ यू नो वेरी वेरी लॉन्ग अमाउंट ऑफ टाइम। सो व्हाट आई डिड वाज आई स्टार्टेड अ टेलीग्राम चैनल, ठीक है, and on that I just promoted my channel through my juniors and everything that I had in college. So ultimately there were around 240 250 members in my Telegram group. Then what I started was I started doing live sessions. I started live streaming my study sessions. So there were juniors from a lot of places that joined my live streams. ठीक है, तो that helped me to sit down basically and study for 6 to 8 hours. So that is the most important thing that I have to understand here, to be able to sit, right? If you're not able to do that, you need to find people to do that with. I'll just give you a very interesting example. So what I did with my grant test was, towards the end of the, towards I think when INICT got over, the frequency of my grant test had to go up, right? So there was this there's this amazing community that I found through Instagram, right? So there are a lot of people that I've met there of a like mindset, and one among them was Vishwesh. His name is Vishesh, sorry, Vishesh. And Vishesh, if you're listening, I mean, I'm very thankful to you for coming into my life at that particular point of preparation, because the amount of what do you say, impact that it has had on my preparation, the grant test discussion that we did. So what we used to do, I'll just show you. Let me just open my Instagram here. So what we used to do is we knew ki, we are at a place where we are stuck in our grant test. So he always used to get better marks. I mean, 10 questions more than me he used to get correct, right? Supposing I score 130 correct, he used to score 140, 145. And even in NEETPG it was the same. My score was 584 and this was something around 620 or 626, right? So the same 40 marks here as well as there. So 10, 15 questions always used to be there. But what he wanted was he wanted consistency, and that is what is very important in the preparation of NEET PG that you will need, right? It is consistency. So what we used to do was we used to just talk and we used to set a particular ग्रांड टेस्ट. ठीक है, जैसे कि मुझे for that matter, an academy at that point announced a grand test series, right? So we thought कि अच्छा ठीक है, this particular series is there on an academy, and we'll just give a grand test every week. ठीक है, तो हमने सोचा कि एक हफ्ते जैसे हमने संडे को ग्रांड टेस्ट दिया फॉर एग्जांपल. सो एट 9 o'clock आई यूज टू सेट, ही ऑल्सो यूज टू सेट, गिव अ ग्रांड टेस्ट फॉर 3 hours, एंड देन ठीक है आफ्टर 12 o'clock वी यूज टू गो विद आर रूटीन एवरी डे. ठीक है, द रूटीन स्टडी सेशंस. ठीक है, तो आफ्टर गिविंग द ग्रांड टेस्ट फ्रॉम मंडे, ट्यूसडे and Wednesday for 3 days, we used to discuss the paper from 7 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock. And what that did was, I'll tell you, it was so marvelous, it was so amazing. Two things it did. Number one, a very awake mind I had at 7 a.m. in the morning for the next 3 or 4 months. Every day we used to do this. So I used to wake up at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, get my routine things done, and I used to sit in front of the laptop and I used to live stream my discussion of grant tests. So he used to just join the live stream and we used to discuss the questions. Okay, so for example, I have a stream here of I think one of the grant tests only, right? So I don't know if this will run, but this is how it is. So you can see it is a 1 hour 31 minute stream. So you see, Acha, this is something else. One second, I'll just show you one of the streams that I had. Right, so as you can see, it was not just Vishesh, there were other people as well attending the particular live stream. Okay, so this is the DBMCI mock 60 questions that we used to discuss. So every day we used to do 60 questions. Now as you can see, the time duration here is 3 hours. तो तुम्हें लग रहा होगा 3 घंटे में बंदे ने सिर्फ 60 क्वेश्चन डिस्कस किए हैं, बट द डिस्कशन वॉज सो हाई yielding. Why? Because I was not discussing it alone, right? There was another person with me who was providing his input. So whenever you talk about this now, whenever you get a question wrong and then you talk about the question, right, कि ये गलती हुई मेरे से and what is the right approach, somebody else tells you and you discuss that question, it creates a memory in your brain. ठीक है, तो वो क्वेश्चन दोबारा गलत नहीं हुआ. ठीक है, so this is a 3 hour long discussion that we've had, right? So we discussed only 60 questions, but I tell you, it was very high yielding. And the most important thing is you're waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning. You're alert at 7 o'clock in the morning. So you do it for 3 hours till 10 o'clock and then you go on with the routine यार. तो सुबह 7 बजे से लेकर 10 बजे तक जब तुम सो रहे होते हो, right, you're studying and you're revising your grand test, and there's nothing more high yielding than this. Okay, so that is one excellent way to overcome your boredom, right? So every Sunday we used to give a grand test, and for 3 days we used to review the grand test. तो 3 दिन में 60 क्वेश्चन करके approximately 200 क्वेश्चंस कवर हो जाते हैं तुम्हारे. In 3 days I used to revise the grand test, review the grand test 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. So that is something that I would like to suggest to you also. Find a study partner, find somebody who is having the kind of mindset that you are having. And this is the reason, I mean, this particular Instagram channel has helped me a lot. I started this because I was from private college and nobody in my college was as enthusiastic about preparing for the exam as I was, right? So I had to find other people who were who somebody who had a similar interest as me. So I've met a lot of people on this particular account, and if anything, this is something that has pushed me and got me this particular rank. I could not have done this without this studygram account. So you need company, you need to be surrounded by good people who are interested in doing things, so as much as you are basically. To find somebody, give grant tests together and discuss them. You can discuss them on live stream like I did, or you can use some other platform like maybe a Zoom meeting or something else, right? So मैं यही कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि बोर्डम को ऐसे आपको टैकल करना है. ठीक है, इट विल बी वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग टू डिस्कस ग्रांड टेस्ट लाइक दिस. ठीक है, नाउ दिस लास्ट टॉपिक दैट वी विल डिस्कस हियर इज इफ यू आर स्टक समवेयर, इफ यू आर स्टक एट अ स्टैग्नेंट स्कोर. अब स्टैग्नेंट स्कोर से मेरा क्या मतलब है? I'm not talking about people who are stuck between 80 to 110, right? 90 marks पे stuck है, 100 पे stuck है. That clearly means your content is lacking. ठीक है, what I'm trying to tell you is, if your grand test score is less than 120, you're stuck somewhere around that. That means your content is lacking. You need revision. उसमें कोई doubt नहीं है. There's no other reason for that, right? Above 120 if you're stuck, 125, 130, and this is a very bad zone to be stuck, because यहाँ से ऊपर आने में ना बहुत मेहनत लगती है, क्योंकि 80 to 120 में आपका कंटेंट कम है. आप कंटेंट पे काम करोगे, यू वर्क ऑन योर कंटेंट, यू विल बी डन. But when you're stuck around 120 score, now this is a very difficult phase to come out from. 120 to 130, 120 से 130, 130 से 140. This jump is very very hard to come, hard to attain basically. The reason being your content is already strong, but now you're making mistakes in some different parts. I'll tell you what parts. Okay. So one mistake that you can be making is this first mistake that I've written here, is that you forget old topics while revising new topics. Now this again clearly means you're lacking a revision source. Now I can tell you with a guarantee, if you want I can demonstrate also tomorrow. अगर तुम मुझे ग्रैंड टेस्ट लेने बोलोगे कल, तो मेरे 120 नंबर कम से कम आएंगे, कहीं नहीं जा रहे, बिकॉज मैंने इतनी बार पढ़ लिया वो सोर्स. ठीक है. अगर मेरी पैथ वीक है तो मेरी और कोई सब्जेक्ट विल कवर इट अप. Do you understand? I have the basic knowledge of all these things. उसके अलावा if I revise this again, I'll easily hit 135. I know that is the capacity of these notes, right? And अगर मैंने silly mistakes नहीं की उसके ऊपर से, तो I can hit around even 140. Because silly mistakes, now this is again something that people don't talk about. Silly mistakes consume a very very high chunk of your मार्क्स. ठीक है. तो दिस इज द रीजन आई टोल्ड यू कि आप लास्ट के 15 दिन में सब कुछ रिवाइज करके जाओ. एंड ट्रस्ट मी, इफ यू आर हिटिंग, आई एम गोना टेल यू दिस वेरी ब्लंटली टुडे, इफ यू आर हिटिंग 140 करेक्ट्स इन योर ग्रैंड टेस्ट, राइट, by the time you give your NEET PG, I'm pretty sure this 140 will easily become 155 plus. Why? Because 15 marks, right, from here to here is silly mistakes. 15 questions is silly mistakes. And you think I'm saying that I'm saying 15 questions the very high number. It's not, right? Everybody makes silly mistakes somewhere or the other. Either they don't read the question properly, right? और silly mistakes से मेरा ये मतलब नहीं है कि आपने सिर्फ पेपर में गलती कर दी कुछ गलत पढ़ने में. सिली मिस्टेक से मेरा ये भी मतलब है कि जो टॉपिक आपको पहले आता था, अ टॉपिक दैट यू रिमेंबर थ्रू आउट योर पीजी प्रिपरेशन, यू मेड दैट रॉन्ग, यू गॉट दैट आंसर रॉन्ग, दैट इज अ सिली मिस्टेक आल्सो फॉर मी, राइट? तो ये 15 आपके नंबर कहीं नहीं जा रहे अगर आपने लास्ट की 15 डेज में, इन द लास्ट 15-20 डेज, इफ यू रिवाइज ऑल द 19 सब्जेक्ट्स, प्लस 25 इज समथिंग दैट यू विल गेट, right? And a 155 160 correct is a very very safe score, right? This year the cutoffs were extremely high and the paper was relatively easier. I've never seen a paper of NEET PG as easy as this year, right? So tomorrow, next year I'm expecting it to be slightly more difficult. Then the cutoff will automatically come down. It doesn't matter anyways. तो दिस इज व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू टेल यू. 140 करेक्ट शुड बी योर टारगेट. ठीक है. सिली मिस्टेक्स कैसे अवॉइड करनी है, फॉर दिस विल टॉक जस्ट फॉर अ मिनट अबाउट हाउ टू अटेम्प्ट इन एमसीक्यू. ठीक है. तो दिस आई थिंक यू मस्ट बी नोइंग. ठीक है. तो अटेम्प्ट कैसे करते हैं एमसीक्यू? फर्स्ट थिंग दैट यू डू इज यू रीड द लास्ट लाइन ऑफ द क्वेश्चन. क्वेश्चन एग्जामिनर पूछना क्या चाह रहा है, व्हाट इज द थिंग दैट इज आस्किंग. इज आस्किंग अ डायग्नोसिस, इज आस्किंग अ ट्रीटमेंट, इज आस्किंग द करेक्ट सीक्वेंस, और इज आस्किंग द नेक्स्ट बेस्ट स्टेप. ठीक है. उसके बाद रीड द ऑप्शंस. ऑप्शंस पढ़ने से क्या होता है, यू अंडरस्टैंड कि क्वेश्चन किस बारे में हो सकता है. डू यू अंडरस्टैंड? और ऑप्शंस पढ़ने के बाद व्हेन यू नो कि क्वेश्चन किस बारे में हो सकता है, देन यू रीड द क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम टॉप टू बॉटम. ठीक है. बट यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट यू मेक श्योर टू रीड द क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम टॉप टू बॉटम. बात समझ में आ रही है? अगर आपको लग रहा है कि ऑप्शन देखने के बाद कि ये ऑप्शन सही होगा, तो कई बार क्या होता है कि देयर इज अ कंफ्यूजर देयर. ठीक है. इफ यू सी टू क्लोज ऑप्शंस ना, दैट इज व्हेन यू डेफिनेटली रीड टू रीड द एमसीक्यू कंप्लीटली. When you see two close options, otherwise agar options are very easy, then you can just read the question in the middle and come to an answer. But that is something that I would not advise in NEET PG main exam. So ग्रांड टेस्ट को भी ऐसे अटेम्प्ट करवा. ठीक है. टाइम मैनेजमेंट हो जाना चाहिए. मुझे लगता नहीं कि नीट पीजी पेपर में टाइम मैनेजमेंट की प्रॉब्लम आती है. ठीक है. सो टाइम मैनेजमेंट आई डोंट थिंक इट इज एन इशू फॉर एनीबडी. इफ इट इज, प्लीज डू कमेंट इन द चैट बॉक्स. आई विल ट्राई टू मेक अ स्मॉल शॉर्ट वीडियो ऑन दैट एज वेल. ठीक है. Right, so that is about how to attempt an MCQ. Okay, so if you make sure that you are spending enough time on one MCQ, okay, reading it properly, marking the right answer in the first go, right, so that is going to drastically decrease your silly mistakes, right, and that will improve your scores. You will no longer be stuck at the score that you're getting. Okay, and the third thing is there are some new important topics that you might have missed, that might have not been a part of your uh, रिविजन. ठीक है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगेन लेट अस गो बैक टू एनाटमी. ठीक है. मैंने मेरा रिवीजन सोर्स बना लिया था, आई मेड माई रिवीजन सोर्स ऑलरेडी, बट देन there was a component of pelvis perineum, bladder injuries, that for some reason I had not included there. ठीक है. And I gave grant tests, and in the grant test, I started making mistakes in the pelvis perineum part. ठीक है. So that is when I incorporated this particular topic in my revision source. So this is what it is. You give grant tests and you learn. Right. So this is the entire process of grant test. I think this video must have been beneficial to you guys. If it has been, please do let me know in the comment box. And if you need me to address anything else, please do tell me about that as well. In the end, of course, if you like the video, please do subscribe to my channel. And yep, that is it. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye, good night.